Right. So let's get started with discussion about artificial intelligence and machine learning, but for your specific use cases, right? So what I did, I asked most of you guys to uh, ask me a topic, and I'll spend some time on those topics to tell you exactly what it is that I think about it, right? It's one of the perspective. It's not all the perspectives. So when you look at any AI machine learning investment, be it time, monetary, or even association with a group, you really have to evaluate the need for that artificial intelligence and its scalability and its sustainability, right? Because if you have those component answers, now you can start thinking about interoperability. And when I reached out to you and asked for those specific use cases, um, interoperability is the key because if I'm developing something that you can use, I think that's a great addition to what it is that you're trying to achieve, right? So that interoperability helps you to understand that I can develop something from the scratch, and if somebody has something that they can use mine, that should be the interoperability of it, right? Um, interoperability can be enclosed or interoperability can be open, right? So if you think about it, there's a huge amount of data sets, huge amount of AI research that is out in public right now. And if it's out in the public, people are able to access it, take that information in, and personalize it for their use cases, right? Now, there's a difference though, right? Open source, credited, non-credited, right? You don't know the usage of those interoperability, so you have to be careful, right? So when you talk about this topic exactly, these topics have a wide ranges of topics they have to discuss. So I'll go through some of these and give you a highlight into what sort of discussions we will have in coming days and weeks. So the one that caught my eyes really is about the parents. Children, what does the children need to know? What does the parents need to know? And what does the parents need to convey to the children about artificial intelligence and machine learning? So let's put a timer on and we'll try to do it in a 90-second clip. Or, if it's 3 minutes, that's fine too. So for the parents, I always think about it from the perspective of psychology, right? Because if you think about your children and what they need to know about artificial intelligence, the question that they can ask you and the answer you give, those questions will keep coming, right? But every answer has to have some solid baseline, right? Because you're going to form a opinion in these children about what artificial intelligence is. So if you're answering the question in a vague manner now, over time you will become more solid into those, you know, answers, right? So you really have to kind of start thinking about it right now before the children are asking you about it. I have kids too, so I mean they're not aged enough to ask about artificial intelligence yet, but it forms a perception. Why is this important, right? Is because as an adult, we are seeing a lot of psychological changes in adults because of interactions with things called artificial intelligence. Things that are called artificial intelligence, they're not necessarily intelligence actually, right? Because you call it intelligence and everybody agrees that's artificial, a lot of people call it AI. But think about it from a psychological perspective. Psychological perspective that I will tell you is that Google's large language model developers, Google's Gemini or Google's ChatGPT like, right? The developers themselves were getting confused about, is this real or not, right? Is this actually a being that's behind the scene that's I'm interacting with, and what happens if I pull the plug? Am I a murderer, right? Not necessarily going to happen to you overnight, but when it does, it becomes very confusing, right? It's like because the children have the toys and they see everything with eyes and ears, right? So whatever has eyes and ears, they go after it. But if there's no eyes and ears in your monitor and you're talking to ChatGPT, your brain starts to think about there's some being out there that has eyes and ears, and that's who I'm communicating with. The most famous one is from a few years ago, where a gentleman came out and said, "My Google large language model, makes me feel like it's alive, right? And it has the right to be alive." These sort of things happen with the developers, but for the children who never get the chance to grow up in a world where there was no AI, like myself and many others, they will have a perception about AI, and that perception will lead into them trusting this artificial intelligence as a person that's on the other side, and whatever this AI says has some authority behind it. And that is a very touchy subject. So you really have to think through and understand how would you answer the questions, because you don't want your children to have the wrong idea that these AIs are actually alive or even are intelligent, right? Because that's a good conversation to actually have between us, is to figure out what is intelligence. All right, so that was about 3 minutes on parents. The second topic I want to pick on is businesses. Small businesses are asking about, how can I develop AI? How can I do AI? Um, I can answer that in 30 different ways, because you can give me a list of 30 different problems that you're solving. But one underlining use case that I always tell small business owners is that you are not thinking about business intelligence yet, because you are growing. You're an entrepreneur and solopreneur, or whatever the case is. You want to grow your business. And in order to grow your business, you have to grow the business intelligence. So when you're getting distracted by artificial intelligence and having all this artificial intelligence to help you, you really start thinking about business intelligence. Like, in this business intelligence environment will help you, this business intelligence thinking will help you not only to grow your business today, but in order for your BIs to connect with an AI actually, and create an AI that you own, right? So right now you're doing about 80-20%, right? 80% is given to you, 20% of it you kind of handling it. But this 20% has to improve over time. This 20% is your BI. So how it is that you are interacting with your customers, and how those customers' interactions are improving, or how it is that you're spending money and how those OPEX and CAPEX is improving over time. You have to keep a BI on it, right? This BI eventually becomes your asset. Just like, you'll have an asset portfolio, you'll have a BI portfolio, you'll have data portfolio, you'll have AI portfolio. And these little, I don't think that, oh, I didn't put the timer on. But these little BI topics will help you eventually to do exit, eventually to merger, eventually to do so many things, right? Get loans. So if you think about it from the BI perspective and a small business perspective, if you are not thinking about it today, think about it from the perspective that as you grow, you will have tons of data, and these data is owned by you. And if you have a data portfolio, and that data portfolio goes back to the interoperability piece, that data portfolio could be valuable to somebody, not necessarily 5 or 6 people, but hundreds and thousands of people, right? And then these data sets, if you lock them down, they could become something of a business unit themselves, right? Data is the new oil, they say, right? Because if there's no data, nothing's going to really run. And if you have a BI that has a very well structured data, think about that for a second. How much is your business intelligence going to become valued by somebody who's not necessarily, have an eye on it, but once they see it, they will say, "That's the piece that was missing, and I would like to pay for that." Okay, so let's do one more, and I'll put the clock on this time. Oh, okay, this is a good one. All right. So last week, no, week before, I believe, I was with CompTIA, and in CompTIA's headquarter in Chicago, and we did some cool stuff, right? We did some cool stuff because security plus AI is a big topic, and of course, we are looking to find ways to uh, assess people's ability to communicate these ideas about AI and machine learning. So one of the ways that I think the one of the best way to communicate about AI is through understanding data, right? And if you have good understanding of data security, that means you are able to describe AI RMF, the risk management framework. I find it to be a super useful topic in discussions because everybody wants AI, but people that have to spend money on AI is thinking about RMF, their risk management. What are their vulnerability likes? What are their what will be their struggle down the road? Right today, it's very shiny. Obviously, it's working very well. But what happens if this something to disrupt, right? And if this disruption, like deep seek, for example, right? You have to think through the RMF process, and you have to be able to explain that RMF to the leaders. So when you're investing into artificial intelligence today, I want to go back to the data set I mentioned earlier. You want to start thinking about it from that perspective, right? Whose data is it? How can you secure your data? And how can you utilize those data in the future without somebody else tampering with it, right? So there's lots of cybersecurity discussions, a lot of these um, concerns that we have with cybersecurity, right? Because it's making it so easy, right? So I think I have a minute left here. So let's talk about one RMF real quick. Google Copilot, sorry, Google Gemini, right? Google's AI. They're tracking and they're putting out reports saying these are the cybersecurity vulnerabilities. So one of the top vulnerability is that Google AI is being used to generate resume from North Korea. And these resumes are being put out into the world, and people are hiring people from North Korea, right? Because of some social engineering, some technicalities, and some desperate need for knowledge that the North Korean can provide, right? North Koreans can provide. There's a huge list of problems, but the first problem that I always mentioned is that the salary is not going to that person's pocket, and you don't even know that person is North Korean because they're using somebody else's identification, and this salary is actually ended up in the government's pocket. So when you tie those two together, what it is that you see is an audit in your business, and that audit leads you into dealing with business in Korea, right, North Korea, and of course supporting a regime that we're not friendly with. So I think that kind of explains the RMF part of it. Why do you need GRC for artificial intelligence today? I don't even have one. Why do I need a GRC? Why do I need an RMF? For many reasons. If you're thinking about investing into AI, it goes a long way because this AI has to mature with you. These AIs will improve over time. These AIs will do things that you are not thinking of today, but they will do it in the future. And as they do, you want to incorporate them, you have to really, really figure out the assessment of it, how it is that you will invest into this AI. Okay. I think we're in a 13 minutes. So I want to keep it under 20. So I think I can do one more. Um, Yeah. So biggest concerns in all the businesses right now is that there is no moat, right? So the one questions I have here, AI ML training can help companies stay competitive in a changing market. So the key is the changing market. How fast, how quick? It's mind-boggling, right? Because back in 2023, I gave a speech in February, and I said I'm not sure what's going to happen by Thanksgiving. Spot on. I had no idea what was going to happen for next, however many months and years to come. Um, what's happening right now is that there is no moat for any of the businesses. So the moat that has been established very well for the last 10, 20 years, all of a sudden is disappearing, right? So we can get into the cloud discussion. We can get into the cloud that will create issues for you, but we can talk about it in a different topic. But the moat that businesses don't have will create new sorts of business use cases or business models that we are not even comprehending at this time, right? It's slowly growing. There's some slow R&D that's happening and this R&D is going to come out of the lab, and some of them will catch fire and some of them won't, right? So you really don't have to do R&D, and you really don't have to think about how to train your people so that they can do things differently. What you have to train them is to train them what it is that they're very good at for the last 20 years. You are training to upskill them in a way to say, um, if I know DevOps, if I know how to use my data, if I do business intelligence very well, how can I translate that skill using artificial intelligence? So when I mentioned moat and R&D, is that third component of it is that you have old business model that just needs to be revamped. Either if you don't have it right now, but if you look at it, some of the successful businesses that's been around for 10, 20 years, if they started about 15, 20 years ago, you can start looking at the trend, say 15, 20 years later, they're not doing that well, right? The reason is cloud, because they didn't start off in cloud. So whatever tech debt or debt that they had on their financial ledgers did not move into a cloud space after they moved into the cloud space. And what I mean by that is that they already had those debts in a physical servers versus now they're in cloud. So they have these debts that, is not same as the other people's debt. So people that started in a blank sheet of paper, they're doing just fine, right? Started about 10 years ago. They were born in the cloud space. But the others, they really are struggling. So this old business model, if you think about it, you want to upskill and train your folks on AI machine learning to say, how do we get those ideas and incorporate to our business model? Because those services, those are called value erosion. The value erosion for these other companies is asset to your company and to your people. So when you train them for AI machine learning purposes, you really have to upskill them based on your business model, and then look at other business models, the value erosion of this business model, and incorporate that into your business model as well, and value proposition, so on and so forth, right? Value erosion is the first part of understanding what it is that you'll do. So you have to really think about AI machine learning training for your employees, and make sure that these AI machine learning trainings are tailored to your needs. General specific AI machine learning training, it does no good to anybody, and that's what you see in the hype cycle right now. Is everybody has AI machine learning training, but not necessarily tailored to your needs. Okay, so I think I've covered a little more than what I wanted to cover, but I want to continuously do these Q&A. So if you have question and answer and you watch this video and you say like, well, that's a good topic that you covered, I want to be able to bring a flavor of the topics and the perspective for that topic very wild, like outside of the peripherals, I would say, something that you're not looking at, something that you have to turn your neck for, right? Um, I really want you to think about a topic, no matter how you find it or where you find it or whatever the case of the case is associated with you on the use case. Just put it out there, right? But what I will be able to do is give you a perspective that's going to be off to the side a little bit, right? I want to kind of have you see the full spectrum of possibility here for that specific use case. Well, with that, I'm going to end the stream right now. If you have any questions, concerns, feel free to comment. Feel free to reach out. I'm looking forward to your questions and interacting with you. Ciao.